Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So I want to come back to the discussion we've been having about millennials. I was in a meeting last week down in Florida at an ad agency where I was helping them out a little bit in terms of understanding some of the dynamics of the supermarket industry. And I heard the story about this young woman who'd been working for the agency about 3 weeks. And apparently, she was an administrative assistant just starting out. And I guess she was working on this project and where she had to make sure that all the pieces of this proposal were pulled together and FedExed out that evening because they had to be at the client's office at the very latest by 10 o'clock the next morning. Okay, there was an RFP. The deadline was 10 a.m. And so she was pulling all this stuff together, and she was going to make her deadline. It was without any problem. It was her job to pull all the pieces together, get it out the door to FedEx, not a problem. But one of the things she learned when she was talking to FedEx about making sure it was going to make the deadline, because she wanted early morning delivery, was that yes, they would make sure they could guarantee to get it to the potential client's office by, I guess, 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning. The problem was, if let's say they got there at 8:30 and the client hadn't opened its doors yet, they would put it back on the truck because they wanted to have it signed for, because it was such an important thing. It would go back on the truck and they'd bring it there a little bit later in the morning, but it might be 10:15, might be 10:30. And so they couldn't guarantee it. Well, she's in one part of Florida and the client was about 2.5 hours away in a different part of Florida. So what she made an executive decision at 24 years of age, being an administrative assistant. She took all the pieces of the project home. And the next morning, she made sure she got up at 5 a.m., she got in her car, and she drove it to the client's office 2.5 hours away, so she'd be there with it when the doors opened, and there'd be no possibility that it would get there late. Not only did she do that, but she made the decision that she knew her car was not all that great. She's 24 years old. So she contacted a friend of hers because she wanted to have a plan B. If something happened to her car, either first thing in the morning or midway down to where she had to deliver it, she wanted to make sure she was covered and that it was going to get there on time. And I guess she knew she delivered it. She called the office, said, "I'm going to be a little bit late." And they said, "Well, how come?" And she explained why. And needless to say, they were impressed. As was I when I heard the story. I mean, to me, that's what you want out of any hire. You definitely want it out of a new hire. It proves an awful lot. Now, I think that's great. Now, not all millennials are going to do that, okay? Because not all millennials are that motivated. But quite frankly, not everybody in any generation is that motivated. I've known some slacker baby boomers in my time as well. I think she's terrific. Representative of a segment of her generation, but clearly not everybody. What I do think, though, now that she's established that this is the kind of person she is, I do think it's incumbent on her employers to realize what they've got and make sure they nurture it, make sure they reward it, make sure that she understands that they're willing to invest in her because she has clearly made an investment in them. That's what employers have to do. You just can't say, "Oh, listen, that's what we expect of them." The fact of the matter is, millennials, they want to know that, that the company they're working for is invested in their future. So now that she's shown, a little bit of her mettle, I think it's up to her employer to show a little bit of its mettle. I have no idea what she makes. But she needs, listen, at some point in the near future, she needs a little bit of a raise. And she needs to know that there's a future with this company because this is the kind of person you want to hang on to, okay? So that's the lesson in this for the employer in this case. Now, it's up to the millennial to do a good job, but it's up to the employer to demonstrate gratitude and recognition of that good job. But, there's also a lesson in this for other millennials, which is this is how you want to behave. If you want to get ahead in any kind of business or any kind of institution, this is the kind of, to use an old-fashioned word, gumption you got to show. You got to show this kind of initiative. You got to show this kind of ambition. You got to show this kind of gumption. You've got to be the kind of person who gets up early in the morning and drives the project to where it needs to be to make sure it's going to be there on time. Show your employer that you want to invest yourself and your time and your effort and your energies in the employer, and hopefully you'll be working for somebody who's willing to recognize and reward that. If you're not, if you're working for somebody who's going to take advantage of you, well, it's time probably to look for another job at some point down the road. There's got to be a mutual recognition here. There's got to be a mutual reward here. It's not, not all the chips are with one side or the other. People are going to be a lot happier, companies are going to be a lot happier, and everybody's going to be a lot more productive if everybody understands that they're in it together and they work towards a common goal, understanding that there needs to be rewards for everybody. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.